Hi, I'm Tanya from Lovely Greens, and we are back for another monthly look at the gardens to see the progress, what I've been up to, what I'm growing, see what's ready to be harvested, and to talk about plans for the next stages of developing this new garden. Now, as a recap, we moved in here last year, but this is the first proper year that I've been growing in the veg patch behind me and also in the Polycrub. So everything is pretty new. And there are some areas that are a little bit scruffier, but these are areas that will be developed over the coming year and will become even more places to grow our own, to support pollinators, and to basically create a really beautiful place to live and to enjoy. All right, so we're gonna have a look first at the Polycrub, we're gonna look at the veg patch, we're gonna go all around the garden, and I will take you through everything that's been going on. We built the Polycrub, I think in February of this year. And then shortly after that, we started work on the beds inside. There are 3 raised beds, and I go through exactly how we built them and how we filled them, which was quite an endeavor, but look at the results. I've not fed these plants anything other than water since then. No additional plant feeds, just that mix that I put in, which was completely organic / natural. And I have everything in here from sweet potatoes to loads and loads and loads of tomatoes and peppers, eggplant, chilies. We've got some butternut squash, melons, basil, so much. And before we go and have a look at all of those, I do need to point out my friend, the wasp nest, which has been growing and growing and has been causing 0 problems at all. We respect one another, and I don't see any hanging about just now, but usually I duck my head when I come in just to lower the flight path risk because it is right here by the door. And that's it, it's fine. I'm in here watering, I'm in here tending. It really has not hampered me in any way. So I'm really pleased that I left the wasp nest in. And as far as other insects, it hasn't stopped insects from coming in here either. And with both doors open, there's a nice breeze, there's good ventilation, and there are plenty of insects and cats in here regularly. Hey Maggie, are you showing off? As we come down this row of tomatoes, I can see that one of the tigerellas, this one that I pointed out last week, that looks just about ripe. And I think I spotted some more here. Oh yes, this must be the purple calabash. Look at the color on that. Let me just double check. I've got the little label down here. Oh no, this is the black crim. There are just so many different types of tomatoes that I have growing in the Polycrub. Everything from salad tomatoes that are a good size to cherries to plum tomatoes like these San Marzanos here in front of us. This one. But it's this plant here that gave me quite a fright earlier. This one with the big tress of tomatoes hanging over the side. I came in from the rear door earlier and I found this plant lying on the ground, just toppled over, fruit all over the place. In fact, I gathered them all up. I stepped on one accidentally and we've got a few there. And fortunately, I was able to get it upright again. The stem had not snapped. But what had happened is that originally I tied that plant up and most of the plants in here with a kind of twine made out of wool. And I thought it would be strong enough. It was quite flexible, a bit stretchy, but obviously not because it had snapped. And so I've used a different type of twine, so something that's a little bit more heavy duty, a bit rougher. And that guy is back up there and hopefully no damage done. Well, I say that, but that tress down at the bottom, I had a closer look at the stem. And if you follow it up through the basil, look at that, it's snapped off. So I'm gonna have to come in here with some secateurs and just cut this off And we have the first green tomatoes that we have to eat of the season. And oh my, that is heavy. The middle bed has sweet potatoes in at the end, and I won't be harvesting them for quite a while. And then we've got the gherkins, which I've been pickling, and they're starting to go a bit bitter. And it's probably to do with the plant being stressed. You'll notice that a lot of the leaves are gone, and that's because this plant, or both of them side by side, have been suffering from powdery mildew. And so when I see those little white spots, I nip the leaf off and I get rid of it. I see another one over there. So I think it's a losing battle with these plants. There's another one there. I can see the faint spots of powdery mildew. So I'll be taking these plants out, I think, pretty soon because I don't want them to affect the other plants growing in here. There are loads of salad cucumbers in here as well. I took a lot of the biggies out last week. You can see that in the harvest video. And there are plenty more of the eggplants or aubergines forming. And I have sliced and frozen some of them now, but we have some in the fridge to eat, and it looks like there'll be plenty more to come out and harvest very soon. That's a good size. So that has been a really big success. I've only really grown aubergines one at a time because of space constraints. So having the Polycrub has really helped with that. Now, another plant that I've only ever really grown in small spaces has been melons. This year, they have a lot more space. And so I've got 2 plants growing up here. And there are tons and tons of little fruits. And there's a larger one down here hiding. Where did it go? There it is. So you can see a melon forming there. But if you look closely, you can see little melons everywhere. And I'm surprised because this variety is not known for producing that many melons on the vine. It is a type called Petit Gris de Rennes, French heritage variety. And it apparently likes growing in my Polycrub. It's doing really well. Let's head over and see the veg patch. I have a new bench here before we get in there. Bought it flat pack. Josh built it for me. And then I set it here. It gets really good morning light. And then eventually, when the roses cover this arbor, it'll be a really scented seat as well. Wood chip, check it out. We've extended the pathway so it comes all the way out here. And you can see there's landscaping fabric and then wood chip on top. And then eventually all of this grass will disappear as I pull it out and we put more stuff on. But it has saved a lot of time and effort with cutting the grass, and it just creates a nice clean walk area. And I've put some of those quartz stones along the side there because they were just sitting out here where the bench was, but I quite like them like this. So we might actually keep that. We'll see though. We're going to be definitely using them around the pond, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I think I've mentioned to you that this plum tree has needed a lot of work, and I have done so much work to help it this year. I have removed all of the affected plums that were affected by that fungal disease, plum pocket. I've also pruned it quite heavily, really thinned it out. Maggie's been helping by climbing it regularly. Oh, there she goes again. Let's see how high she can get this time. Whoa, zoom, well done. The black plastic that I laid on the slope is still there. The grass underneath is definitely dying back though. And so it is on schedule to be cleared off in early autumn, so September. And then I'm going to sow it with wildflower seeds. And then they'll establish before winter. So we'll see lots of little shoots, and then come spring they'll shoot up, and this will be just as beautiful as the wildflower bank that's behind the Polycrub. There are 11 no-dig beds in the garden now, and most of them are filled with plants. And to create them, literally all we did was create the frame, so that wooden frame, put down some cardboard inside on top of the grass. We didn't dig. And then pile compost on top. And that's it. That's it. We've not dug this soil at all. And so all of the cabbages and the herbs and the lettuces, potatoes, onions, green beans and courgettes, everything that is growing, beets and corn, it's just growing in that layer of compost, which is really exciting because if you're not able to dig for whatever reason, physical constraints, time constraints, you can just create no-dig beds very easily. And all it needs is a very thin layer of compost once a year, and that's it. You're off to a running start like I am with growing your own. The bed here in front of me, this is a perennial bed. And to be fair, a lot of the plants in here, I'm going to relocate next year when there's a bit more space to plant at the peripheral areas. And I've got everything in here from oca, so the New Zealand yam, to rhubarb, which will probably stay. I've got a perennial kale that hasn't done as well as I'd hoped, but maybe it will recover. This is yacon, root vegetable, and it's getting really big. And then we've got Egyptian walking onions, Welsh onions, sunflowers, and the first one has bloomed down here of this one. It's looking a little bit bedraggled. And then we've got some skirrets, which is what Europeans had instead of carrots before we started eating carrots, which is an interesting veg. Because this bed and the area beside it are close to the driveway in the house, I wanted to put something a little bit more ornamental here. And so these are all dahlias. And some of them are very small, just brand new tubers that I got this year. And others are a bit more established. And most of these are different varieties. This is one that I've grown a couple of years called Burlesca. There's also Islander over there, and it's been very difficult to deadhead them, but I do need to reach down and take out those flowers. And then down here, this is a new development. So this is an L-shaped bed, and I've planted it just yesterday with globe artichokes and lots of flowers that have been languishing in pots for the past 1 or 2 years. So bee balm, echinacea for the most part, also verbena, which is down the center, and it is really struggling at the moment. Should have planted it out a long time ago, but you know how it is. It's difficult to plant things out when you don't have the space, but it's easy to buy plants that you actually don't need. So I'm glad that they have a home, and we'll see if they recover. And this bed is not a no-dig bed. And the reason that it's not is because I believe that this used to be a gate onto a field. Our garden used to be a field, and it was heavily compacted, and there was a lot in the soil. I was finding bricks and glass and all kinds. So I did lightly dig this over just to pull a lot of that stuff out and to free up the soil. And then I've mulched it on the top with compost. And on the far end, that is horse manure that's been composted for about a year. And then also there's wood chip compost as well. Some of it is only partially composted, so you can really see the wood chips still. And then others, so down here where the artichokes are, there, that is much more broken down. So this will be a nice L-shaped bed, and hopefully it will fill in with plants by next year. And the wood chip path will continue around it, but as you can see, our driveway desperately needs to be resurfaced. And so we have organized for that to happen next month. And so once that is complete and this is all repaved, then I will tackle putting in a nice little edged area of wood chip beside this bed and down below it. Over the winter, we planted quite a few shrubs and trees. including these fruit trees down here in the lower garden. And originally, none of them had stakes. And most of them don't really need stakes, but this one in particular was really suffering in the wind, I think because it has so many branches. And so that's why it has that stake. It was really moving around and it would have been damaged at the base without that support. When you do put stakes in for young trees, you do need to take them out after 2 years. You can't leave them in. So 2 years max, just to help the tree to establish and get a good footing. The stakes up here for the cordon trees are different though. Those are trained trees that will grow vertically. So these ones here between the two arches, and they're doing great. And the way that they grow is straight up, and their lateral branches I'll have to prune back over time. I'm not going to be doing any pruning this year. It'll be starting from next year. And then the dwarf apple trees that are around each of these arches are growing. And as soon as they hit this next rung, I will tie them into that. I will also tie them in to this one here. And eventually, and they're well on their way, they will form an archway, which will look beautiful. And hopefully it'll be strong enough for me to take the metal arch out completely. Let's go have a look at the hedgerow. This is where the new fence ends, and you can see all along it is the hedgerow. And these were just barren little sticks when they went into the ground over the winter. And now they all have leaves. Some of them have flowers and berries. And with this fence, they will grow through it and against it and create a really nice boundary that is wildlife friendly. Let's walk up and have a look at some of these other shrubs. These are two different mixes. This lower mix is from Kenmure, a nursery in the UK. And then as we get up a little bit further, so beyond the cordon tree and into the actual veg patch, this is a mix called the Gin Makers Mix, and it's from Hope's Grove Nurseries. And I've had hedging from them before. It's marvelous, really good quality, and it is the hedging that we have at the allotment. And these trees in particular look really healthy. There's everything in here from hazel and wild pear to elder. This is an elder right here. You can really see the state of our driveway coming up from the bottom here. So it's going to be great to get it all resurfaced. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that when it's finished. But the option that we've gone for is a little bit more eco-friendly and it looks really good. Our neighbor has some, so that's where we got the idea. Now, this side of the garden, it's all a little bit wild, which I love. And we're just gonna leave it like that for now. That far bank below the two blue vehicles, that is going to be a project for the winter, tackling the crane's bill, which is on the left, dividing it up and replanting it around the house, and then also putting in some more flowers. Where this wood chip pile is, this is kind of the area where I'm thinking to put the pond. Not directly against where the driveway is, but maybe just down slightly, just below it, about here. Because this is a good area away from the veg patch, so I can do lots of planting around it. It's a bit quieter, and I think also because this is going to be, I think, a little bit more of a wilder area just down here at the bottom. This area here in front of where the compost area is, I need this free for deliveries of manure. It's just easier for trucks to get in and deliver there. And then up here amongst all the trees, there's going to be even more beds when I'm through with it. We had a good hard rain earlier, and it was the most rain that we've seen in weeks. And so you see a little bit of that wetness still on the patio, and everything is looking perkier and bright and green. And it has saved me from having to water today. With containers and plants in pots, you really do need to keep on top of watering. That is one of the main tips that I have for you if you are growing in containers. And I have a video sharing even more tips on keeping plants lush and productive if you want to go check that out next. Now, I've done some rearranging here, and there are fewer plants in pots because I've been planting them out in the garden. But we do have quite a few apples, strawberries. Oh dear, you can tell we really had some rain earlier. So I'm gonna have to move these pots out of this tray. It's completely filled up. Look at that. Wow. Do you remember some time ago when I planted up the greenstock planter and I put catnip at the top to keep it away from Maggie? Well, check it out. Total success. The cats have been leaving it alone, and I've just been taking a leaf down every now and again for them, and I'll be cutting and drying it just like I did for the mint in my preserving video so that the cats can have some catnip over the winter. And then I've also sown radish seeds in some of the pockets. And this is one of the radishes I was pulling at earlier. There are quite a few more just like it, hiding back behind and in some of the other pockets. So this has been a real success. And this is a great planter. There's more details on it in the video description, and it's great for smaller plants. The greenhouse was packed in spring, but now it's quite a bit emptier since I'm not really starting very many seeds in here. It's been too hot. I have some on the go in the house, and you can tell that it's been hot because a lot of the greens that I have growing in these pellet planters have started going to seed. Now, oh, look who's decided to join us. She heard me talking. We've got our little star here, Maggie. And if you haven't heard, Maggie now has her own Instagram where she shares her own videos and photos. There goes the little diva. Back to these greens. These are a mix of different Asian greens. I think this one's Mizuna. And the flowers and the leaves, they get a lot hotter and spicier as they start to bolt, but perfectly edible, really tasty. In fact, we had some last night and I just made a bed of them and then put some pasta on top. This here, these are seeds. So they're seed pods from a kale, and I'm saving the seeds for next year. You can see the base of the kale down there. It's Uncle Bert's Purple, heritage variety. And so once these start turning a little bit more yellow and opening slightly, then I'll save those seeds, collecting them, drying them out, and then put them in an envelope until next year. Here we have the korats in their usual station. It's nice and warm in here. Earlier this year, I was gifted an auto drip system called Auto Pot, and it works through this tank. It's gravity fed. You fill it with water, and then that tube down at the bottom drip feeds water, and you can also put plant feed in there, and it auto feeds these pots. There's 4 of them, but you can get larger systems, and it's been working really well. And we have quite a few tomatoes in here as well, although admittedly these ones are a little bit less tended than the ones in the Polycrub. These are kind of my extras, and they've just been really doing their own thing, which is great because I don't have to worry about watering them at all. Just put water in that tank and away they go. Well, that is the garden in July. What do you think? I know that we are really proud of the work that we've been doing thus far, and I'm really excited about the amount of crops that we've been getting out of this first year garden. Now remember, the beds behind me, these are brand new, no dig beds. So I didn't dig over the soil. I go through how I created the beds in another video. They're all made the same way. So no digging, really easy peasy, and you can start growing in them immediately. But the bounty that they've been giving us has just been astonishing this year. And also the Polycrub. that is brand new this year. I go through the build and also exactly how we built the beds inside and how we filled them in previous videos if you want to see how we did it. So if you are starting a brand new garden from scratch, it can be incredibly productive the first year, just depending on how you go about it. Now, as far as for preserving produce, we have a lot coming in at the moment, even more once those tomatoes start ripening. And so knowing what to do with them will help you to have food through the autumn, winter, and into next year. And so I recommend you go and check out that video, 7 ways that I preserve food without pressure canning, if you want to get some ideas. Now, as always, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has enjoyed this video and has watched this far, but also especially to my Patreon supporters, and amongst those that are over there on Patreon, to Suzanne and Yeti, who's my top supporter. Thank you so much. And if you want to learn a little bit more about Patreon, there's a link down in the video description. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time here on Lovely Greens. Bye for now.